Okay, guys, so welcome to Golden Conversations, episode one. I'm really excited. Um, it's the 4th of July, and we're going in with a bang. We're starting off with a bang. It's Trigger City today, guys. We're going to be talking about triggers, what they mean, how we navigate them, and also how we love them, right? Because they're not our enemies, they're actually our friends. And I'm going to go into discussion about them and stuff like that. So if you guys are ready, we're just going to jump right in, okay? All right, so today, the first, I wrote down talking points just for the sake of time. So I don't, because I babble sometimes, guys. So I wanted to stay focused. I wanted to stay on track. So, point number one is just triggers. What are they, right? So, those are the moments where you have a spike in your emotions. And it could be good, it could be bad, right? You could feel a trigger that causes or catalyzes happiness, but you could also feel triggers that catalyze fear or anger, stuff like that. So, we're going to focus on the ones that catalyze like the lower frequencies and the lower vibrations because those are the ones that seem to give us trouble, right? We don't complain when we're happy, but we usually do complain or we don't like the way we feel when we're angry or we're upset about something. So, triggers, they come through different sources, right? Sometimes people trigger us, sometimes life situations trigger us, but they're triggering nonetheless, and they affect us on an emotional level nonetheless. But these are the things that the universe uses as like a tool to help reflect back to us things that need our attention, right? So we're not going to jump too far ahead yet. I want to make sure we're like going in order so you guys take in all that there is to take in. But we have a lot of energy on the planet right now surrounding change, right? And these things are being catalyzed by certain triggers that have happened. Like, even look at the global trigger of like COVID-19 and how it came online. And it literally changed the lives of so many people in so many different ways. But that was just like one life scenario trigger that we experienced that really did help us to evolve. I know myself personally, looking back from now until like 2020 last year, there's a major difference in my energy, how I understand life, my perspective, things like that. And that's what triggers do. They help us, and they come to help us learn, they come to teach us, right? So I wrote here something really interesting. I wrote that Earth is the place that we come to in order to learn. It's like a school of learning. But what we study here is our emotions. We learn how to become more like masters of our emotions. And the universe uses little things or instances like triggers to help us find that alignment, right? Because triggers, they really are like a guiding kind of source from the universe that help us navigate our path so that we know when we're on the right path and when we're off track, right? So let's talk about owning our triggers. And it sounds a little far fetched to say, we're responsible for how we feel, because in some instances, there are situations where you just feel completely like it's the fault of the other person or it's the fault of the situation or whatever the case may be. But in owning your trigger, it's the accountability that I'm really focused on, right? The owning of how you feel. Because if you guys have heard the statement, like, no one can actually make you happy, right? It's a common phrase that we all have heard before, but it's really true. It has to, if it's true for one emotion, such as happiness, it has to be true for the others, right? So in that, I'm saying, if no one can make you happy and happiness comes from within, then it's true to say that no one can make you mad or no one can make you fearful. Those also come from inside of you, right? Or inside of us. And so, in owning your trigger, you start to know that there's something within you that you have to take accountability for when you feel that spike in your emotions in that moment, right? And so I was talking to Nichelle, since she's all of our friends here, and she gave me some really, really cool insight. And she gave me like a little narrative to kind of make it a little more understandable for those of you who, like, you want some more clarity on the subject. So she compared it to being like a fish on a hook. And I thought this was so interesting. And if you know her well, you know she loves the water. So this was like right up her alley. But she literally said, think of yourself as the fish, think of the hook as the trigger, and think of the direction that you're being pulled in as your emotion, right? Or the momentum of that specific emotion. So for you to be the fish that's on the hook, that means in your human form, there has to be some hookable point inside of you in order to be captured by that hook. Yeah. Because if you think like logically, literally, if there's nowhere for the hook to insert itself, then you can't catch that fish or you won't catch that fish, right? But if you've been fishing, then you know that that piece that comes from reeling the fish in. And I'm thinking of it from the perspective of reeling it in as in like taking control of the trigger, right? There's a certain piece that you that you experience when you grab that trigger by the hands and you literally look it in the face and you deal with it. And so this is what I'm going to be explaining to you guys today, how to deal with those triggers, how to face those triggers, right? So you have that notion that no one can make you feel anything, right? But I included two specific examples just to kind of make it more relatable to like a real life scenario. So the first example we're going to talk about is the example of Billy and Mandy, right? So if you guys know the cartoon, you know where I got the names from, but it has nothing to do with the show. These are just the hypothetical names we're going to use for this example. So Billy and Mandy are in a relationship, and let's just say that one day something inspires Billy to say what he's been feeling for a while to Mandy. And whatever this is, it doesn't have to be anything specific, but Mandy feels offended. She feels hurt by Billy's words, right? So she then proceeds to feel, let's say she feels angry, right? She feels sad. She feels, I'm just thinking of some emotions that could be triggered in an instant like that. But she feels all of these things that are more low vibrational than high vibrational. And so Mandy now, it's for her to look at herself, because honestly, she's looking at Billy like, how could you make me feel these things? But in actuality, she's already felt them. And Billy is just the mirror that the universe is using to show her what she's feeling inside. You get me? And so now, let's say Mandy joins this call, she joins this Zoom, right? And she's like, I need some inspiration about this trigger because Billy is getting on my nerves, right? It's just what it is. And so we would say to Mandy here, like, so what is it about you? Well, let's ask her, what did you feel, right? So you will know based on the emotions that you feel what's going on inside of you. So she felt angry, right? So you ask Mandy, okay, let's get to the bottom of your anger. Why did you feel angry? What about his words angered you? And then she could say, well, let's just say, let's get a little specific now. Let's say he told her, I don't like the way you wash the dishes, right? Let's just say. And it got her upset. So you say, what made you upset about his statement, like about how you wash the dishes? And she's like, because I do a lot and I put a lot of effort into making sure the dishes are clean and I just want to be acknowledged. So then it's safe to say that inside Mandy, she already doesn't feel acknowledged. And she's doing things to feel acknowledged, but now it's not coming from a genuine place. You see how that works? So the universe is going to show you that your actions are coming from more lack than more wholeness. And it's going to reflect things back to you so that you can enable that capacity within you to fill that void. Because that's what it is. It's a void that you're trying to fill with someone else's recognition or whatever it is in that situation that you're looking for, right? And so the whole thing about triggers is that they show you that there's something within you that's out of alignment and that you have to do the work to fix it, right? And I don't want to say fix it because like we're not broken, but we're humans. Like I said, Earth is a school where we come to learn. And so we're here and we're learning and we're going through the thick of these situations, but sometimes it's not always easy because you're literally in the middle of it, right? So let's say for Mandy, because I'm going to go deeper into how to navigate these triggers and how to deal with them when they do come up. But for Mandy's situation, I would recommend for her, in her situation specifically, to look at how she can make herself feel more valuable, right? And that's not through the eyes of other people, it's through the eyes of herself, because it's through the eyes or the perspective of ourselves that we actually find that wholeness that we're seeking, right? So let's keep going. So back to that point where there's a hookable point inside of you, right? For Mandy, her hookable point was a little bit of that insecurity or like a lack of self-worth, right? Feeling underconfident in her abilities to be of service and of like useful service to people that she cares about. We have now Jack in another scenario where he doesn't have a trigger that's a person, but he has a trigger that's a life situation. So Jack loses his job, right? He has this job for like, let's say 30 years. He's been comfortable. He had a couple promotions, got a couple raises. He lives a good life and he loses his job, right? So you can imagine what that triggers for Jack. He's going through a whole different set of triggers than Mandy. His triggers are more related to fear of survival, right? Lack of stability is what he's probably feeling. What else did I write down here? Um, it's just lack in like every respect of the name and of the essence of that kind of energy. Because when you think about it, if it were you who were to lose a job, now you're worried about bills, right? You're worried about how you're going to eat. You're worried about how you're going to live. You're worried about your quality of living because maybe Jack was used to a certain standard of living, and him losing his job, maybe it's triggering the fear that he won't be able to maintain that standard, right? It could be a whole array of different things that Jack is experiencing. But when Jack starts to actually look deep down inside at what this is causing him to feel, he would see that the universe allowed this losing of the job to happen so that he could own those parts of him that were more codependent on this job than not, right? Because sometimes we become codependent on things, not just jobs, but even feedback from people. Like Mandy, in my opinion, seems a little codependent on her feedback from not Jack, sorry, from Billy, and like to make herself feel more secure or more confident in her work and whatever she's doing, right? But Jack was codependent on this one opportunity that he had, and he was grateful for it. But sometimes in staying in one energy for too long, the universe is ready for you to grow and expand, because that's what we come here to do. We come here to evolve, and we have to do so through different energies and different situations. And sometimes we get comfortable in one situation and we don't want to grow. We feel like we've done the growing, we feel like we've mastered what we need to master, and now we're good, we feel set. But the universe goes, we have more to do. This is not over. Because if you think about it, if you're done all your growing, with all your growing here on the planet, then what are you here for? Right? At that point, then you kind of don't serve a purpose for the, in my opinion, the reason that Earth is here and the reason that we come to Earth, right? Because it is a school. We learn so many different lessons here. And so now we move on to how to deal with these triggers when they come up, right? So I have an affirmation for you guys, but before I get into that, I want to talk about when you're in the middle of the trigger, right? Some helpful pointers, some helpful tricks and tips to navigate them, because sometimes it's easier to talk about hypotheticals, but when it's really you and it's your situation, it's rough, right? You don't, sometimes you're not able to see the forest from the trees because you're so clouded by whatever the chaotic energy is that got stirred up inside of you. So my first thing is find your center, right? Whether that means you have to physically distance yourself from the trigger, let's say it's a person or it's like something that you can physically distance yourself from. In Jack's situation, he can't distance himself from losing a job. So we're going to get to perspectives like that when life happens. But when it's centered around something or someone where you can't take your space, then it's probably wise to do so, because what it is oftentimes we play the blame game with triggers, right? And if you are blaming a person, the longer you stay in that energy, the longer you're going to continue to blame them, right? That energy just gains more momentum. So imagine, you're Mandy and Billy says what he says to you, and now you decide to go take a walk in nature, right? You go for a run, you go for a hike, whatever it is, but now you're taking that space to find your center, right? To really get calm, well, as calm as you can in a situation like that, and to come back to self, because that's what it's really about at the end of the day, understanding self, understanding where these situations are coming from. And guys, I have to also interject here and say, and some people may not want to hear this, maybe not you guys, but others that will tune in later. We attract the triggers that we receive. Very much so. It's never a time where we feel triggered and we did not have an equal part in attracting that trigger. And it's because we are where we are frequency wise, energetically. And the universe knows where we are frequency wise and in our energy. And they're going to send us exactly what we need, exactly at the right time, so that we can see what we haven't been able to see. Right. And so a lot of times we pray for triggers that are less chaotic or less like traumatic, but sometimes it's through those experiences that we learn the most. Right. And so I had to put that in there because that is also a part of navigating the trigger. It's also understanding the trigger. Right. But I say, distance yourself if you can at first, because it'll give you the space to try to then understand the trigger from a calmer perspective. Have you ever tried to like fix a situation when you're like in the heat of the moment? It never usually works out. So literally. And so I feel like in taking that time, zenning out, finding something that you even enjoy doing, because that will change your energy as well, right? You go from focusing on negative or lower vibrational to focusing on something more positive, more high vibrational, that's more in alignment with the truth of who you are. Because in essence, we're not miserable people, right? We are, in our energies, in our souls, we are actually unconditional love. We just have egos. And those are the parts of us that get triggered, right? The ego, that tells us otherwise. And so my next point is to do a self assessment. So let's say you take that walk in nature, and now you're like, okay, I went to that golden conversation episode. I know that there's something about me that's attracting this trigger. So what is it about me that I need to hear, or that I need to learn, or that I need to accept in this moment in order to not attract these triggers going forward, not this specific type. Because throughout life, we're going to be triggered in different ways. And that's the growth process, right? So when you master one lesson, you usually don't have to repeat the lesson, but then there are other lessons to move on to that will come with certain triggers and things like that, right? And so you say, okay, what is it about me that's attracting this trigger? What is it about me that's feeling really susceptible to this action of the person or this action of the universe? Like, what is it? And so, and understanding where you feel, because you know what emotion gets triggered usually, right? And usually it's anger or fear. I feel like those are the two most common triggers that are out there. Because in fear, I guess what I'm trying to say is that most people on the planet have a fear of consequences, and the most fearful consequence that we have is death, right? Ultimately the fear of survival. And so in Jack's scenario, he really got triggered with this energy of fear. How am I going to make it through? How am I going to get through this? How am I going to, pay my bills? He maybe has a family. Maybe he was a sole breadwinner and now he doesn't know how he's going to provide for his children, his wife, whatever the case may be, right? But in understanding the fear or understanding the underlying emotion, now you can begin to see things differently, right? Because the choice is yours to choose how you feel in any moment. We are liberated creatures, right? We have freedom, we have autonomy, we also have, what is the word that I'm looking for? Just like the power to choose in any now moment how we want to feel. And sometimes we feel like a victim of our feelings and we feel like we can't control how we feel. But that's the illusion, right? That's what the ego does. It gets so wrapped up in what's going on that it convinces you don't have a say in what you're feeling. Right. So you're taking this walk through nature, you do the self assessment, you realize the underlying emotion, and now you're able to see the illusion. Is this something that represents truth? The energy of who I actually am, or is this something that I need to learn in order to grow to become more of the person who I actually am? Right? It's like you're fishing for that hookable point, but you're looking for it inside of yourself now. Yeah. And so then after the assessment, after you understand the underlying emotion, you can begin to surrender it. You can begin to release it because now you're aware of it. Sometimes we can't get out of the momentum of a trigger because we don't even know what's really going on. We haven't processed the emotions. But that's the important part, understanding self, having that awareness of self. It's a more empowering state because then you're at the position where you can choose how to navigate or where to go next. Yeah. And so the affirmation I have that really ties into this is, these triggers are trying to free me and I accept the freedom, right? These triggers are trying to free me and I accept the freedom. So when you think about what the universe is doing, right? How it's using people and situations as mirrors to reflect back to us the things that we need to work on and the things that we need to enhance or transmute, right? Those energies, because emotions literally stand for energy in motion. That's what emotions are. And so that's what I was saying, like that momentum of like that hookable point with the fish on the reel. It's like you're being pulled in a direction of an emotion because it's really the energy behind the emotion catalyzing that movement. You following me? And so I feel like, because what we came here to do is not just to learn how to navigate and master our emotions, right? But we came here to learn how to be more of the observer of them and less of like the slave to them or the servant to them. Because sometimes when you're in that triggering moment, you become a servant to your emotions, whatever emotion got triggered for you. And the universe is wanting you to be more self-reliant, self-assured, more confident in your walk, right? So that you're not susceptible to whatever emotion pulls you this day or the next day, because we wake up with different things happening every single day. You can't predict what's going to trigger you tomorrow or the day after that. We just know that these things come, and when they come, they don't always feel the best, and we want to learn how to better navigate them, how to better equip ourselves to deal with them, right? So after you do the process and you begin to surrender the emotion, if you're Mandy, you can go back to Billy and say, look, I understand what you were doing. Because in actuality, guys, I don't, this is my opinion, right? Some of you may different opinion, but I don't think that there's a single person on this planet who has bad intentions. I think we all are just trying to figure things out, and we react because we have egos, right? We get caught up in emotions because we have egos. We overthink, over rationalize because we have egos. And that's just the cycle of life. We do these things and we learn from them, right? But am I saying that I think Mandy now, after taking her walk, doing her assessment, realizing the underlying emotion and doing the releasing, she can go back to Billy and say, "Hey, I understand that you weren't trying to offend me, right? You weren't trying to hurt my feelings because that's not innately who you are. You're not a herder. You're not a harmer. You made a statement that triggered me because I had something I need to work on. And now that I figured out what that is, I can come to you from a different perspective and understanding what that scenario taught me, right? Because these are the lessons." And so Nichelle gave me another piece of advice for you guys. I gotta throw her in this because she really did help me pull this all together. But she literally said that, let me see, I wrote it down, guys. She said, as we're hooked or invited, it's not about being triggerless going forward, but about being fully present in the teachable moment, right? Having that awareness of what's actually happening when the triggers are happening. And I felt like that was like food for the soul because literally that's what it is. A trigger is a teachable moment. It's an opportunity to learn more about self. I feel like that's what this is, a self awareness momentum. And the universe uses these things that feel not so good all the time to try to get our attention. Because sometimes when life is a little too good, we're like oblivious to certain things, right? We don't want to acknowledge the painful things that linger inside of us. We all have an ego, we all have shadow aspects that have to be transmuted. And we're here to do it. But sometimes when life is a little too sweet, who wants to go to the dark side, right? I'd rather stay over here where it's sunny and it's warm and I can walk on the trails. I can go to the beach right in Santa Barbara and I can do my thing. But life without contrast is really not an opportunity to learn. It's just smooth sailing, right? And we have universal laws that govern this planet. And one of them is called the law of rhythm, as in what goes up must come down. It's the cycle of life. So we're going to have highs and we're going to have lows in life. That's how we maintain the balance. And it's not to say that the lows are bad. The lows are those teachable moments in which we then move on to that next high point after we surpass the previous low point. Yeah. All right. And so this didn't go on for as long as I expected, but my last point is just to love your triggers, honor them, respect them, right? Be non judgmental in your approach to deal with them because a lot of times we label our triggers as bad, which is why we engage in that blame game, which is why we want to point the finger at other people. But in really dealing and processing your triggers, you understand that it's really not a bad thing. It's an opportunity for you to grow and expand. It's the universe showing you how much it loves you by allowing you to experience these teachable moments. And it's not for you to get caught up in the energy of what's happening. It's for you to become, as I said earlier, more of the observer and less of the experiencer so that you are able to be fully present in that moment without getting caught up in the momentum of that negative energy, right? You can say, hey, I'm feeling angry right now, but let me observe what this is. It's not a bad thing to feel anger. It gets a little chaotic when you get wrapped up in the anger, right? Because we're humans, we're here to have emotions. And it's not just all the positive ones. We come with a whole array of emotions, down to like grief and apathy sometimes, right? And depression. But it's for you to not really suffer through them. It's for you to step back and say, okay, I'm feeling this, I'm present with this feeling. What is this feeling trying to show me? What is this feeling trying to teach me? We can even talk about positive triggers for a little bit and say how those are teachable moments too, right? Because what are they trying to show you? That you're in a certain alignment where you're receiving things that keep you in higher vibrations, right? You ever have something happen to you randomly where it just makes you feel so good? Maybe if you're looking for a job, you get the job, right? Or maybe if you're looking for a date, somebody asks you out, or if you're looking for money, somebody sends you money randomly. Like those moments where you're just like, whoa, that was like incredible. I feel really good in this moment. That's teaching you that you're in a certain alignment. Your frequency is at a certain resonance where you're attracting those things that make you feel good. And equally so, when you're vibrating or at a resonance with like lower vibrations, that's when the universe is going to reflect that back to you because it's all about what we have going on inside of us, right? There's this I don't even know how to pronounce the word axiom. I think that's how you say it. It goes as above, so below, as within, so without. And so, literally, your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So, if you're being triggered by someone outside of you, that means that there's a catalyst happening inside of you, waiting to help you grow, waiting to help you transform, and just elevate on all levels of your life, right? Because that's what we're here to do. So, love your triggers, guys. Honor them, even when you're in the middle of it and you feel like shit because it happens sometimes. It's not a bad thing. It's a teachable thing. It's a thing for you to learn from. It's a thing for you to really just enhance your life. Because in my opinion, the universe is very benevolent, right? It wants you to have a good life. It wants you to have all the success. It wants you to be empowered. But a lot of times we get caught up in programming of society, right? We get caught up in the the ways of the world, I'm going to say. And sometimes the ways of the world don't necessarily resonate for us. We all have our individual journeys. And so, with all of these things happening, all of the programming, it's almost like the triggers help you to unlearn and relearn so that you can learn from a sovereign place, right? Be more independent in your life study, so to speak. And so I will now open up the floor for feedback, for questions. Let me unmute you guys. One second. Um, I'm trying to figure this out. Hold on, guys, 1 minute. Mute all. I'm trying to ask all to unmute. Okay, so you guys should be good now.
Yes.
I can hear you. Okay, so we did it. Nice. All right, guys. So do you have any questions, any feedback, anything that you guys want to discuss or like talk about?
I just think you made some great points. I was
Oh,
actually
thank
literally
you.
just telling Nichelle that I might have to step outside. Fireworks and the dog is there. A little chaotic.
Okay.
Yeah, I was literally talking to Nichelle about how I've been noticing I have a lot of triggers, and I like not until recently I realized that it's, I have to really reframe my brain and the way I'm thinking about things to really work on them. And
Definitely.
yeah, it's strange though, because I feel like when it's happening, you really, as you said, like you really just don't know what's going on. You just know that something is bothering you. So then it's hard for you to
Literally.
fix it if you don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
So I thought you made some really great points. There's actually this podcast, which is a little more psychology feminist based, but she was talking about triggers recently, and I think you'd really enjoy it, and like how psychologically, like we're we have to reframe things in our brains to make it work for us. It's not intuitive. So that's why
Right.
we all have to put in the work. Yeah, so thank you.
I love that. If you don't mind, after this whole shebang is over, can you text me that podcast link? Because I would love to indulge, literally.
I'll share it with you. If you
Very
want to
nice. Thank
also look
you.
at, it's called Unfuck Your Brain.
Ah, I love it. Love it.
Ah,
Unfuck your brain. That's hilarious. Literally, I want to. I really do.
yeah, same boat.
That is so funny. What about you, Leah? How you feeling, love?
I really learned a lot. Like, I feel like
I'm
the
glad to
way
hear that.
you explain things is just in a different way that I could really understand. Like, especially the communicating after the trigger. I feel like for me, I usually am someone that like retreats and I'm a little embarrassed. And now kind of hearing how you said it, so empowered, like, hey, this is what triggered me. I'm not even there anymore. I've learned so much. And it makes it exciting. It's kind of like, wow, this is an adventure.
Literally, I love how you put that into perspective. Both of you guys have like really great points. Love it. Sorry, guys, I got a notification from Zoom that they gave me past 40 minutes, which I didn't even know that there was a limit, but okay, I'm grateful. That's nice. Right? But no, that's really a valid point how you like put that into perspective. And I never even took into consideration that people usually don't talk about the triggers afterwards.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, I do that too. I do retreat. I don't like to talk about them, but there's nothing wrong with owning your truth, right? If it's because we're human, right? We're not perfect. So there's going to be moments where we get caught up, period. Like it's always going to happen. At some point, you're going to get caught up and you're going to learn from it, right? But being in that sovereign and empowered state to be able to go back to the person, or if it wasn't a person, but to face life and the universe and say, hey, I had a moment, I learned from it, and I feel so much better because of it. And I want you to know that I don't hold you responsible for how I feel. I feel like that's the most important thing, because oftentimes we hold people accountable for what's going on inside of us, because it's like there's a fear there, or there's a guilt associated with dealing with the triggers. Yeah. I see your face, Gabby.
I mean, you know that I'm going through a divorce, so like I have a ton of triggers that I'm working on right now. And
Yeah.
I've been trying to do that thing, just like rephrase things in my brain because I've been very pessimistic lately. And I've
Okay.
noticed that it's because sometimes like little things happen or people say something in a way that it brings me back to suffering patterns, from my past relationship. And then I feel stuck and I freak out and I snap at them. And I'm just like, I don't want to feel this way and I don't want to snap at them. But, before I was holding on to like, oh, this is all Gio's fault. Look at what he did to me. He broke me. But that's also not taking accountability, right? Because
It's
I'm the one
true.
that's reliving these memories and revisiting these things. So I've been trying to tell myself, like, hey, like, yeah, that happened, but you also made a choice to stay in that relationship. So you are also to blame in a way, and you have to take responsibility for that. You learned a lot of things and it's okay. Don't be so fucking hard on yourself and just, like we're all changing. You found out before, you were in your 70s, which is a great thing. There's still
Yeah,
life.
Cute. A long time. Love it.
literally.
Awesome.
Can I add to your scenario, Gabby? Because it's interesting. I was talking about triggers as in like in the moment when they're happening, right? And sometimes, like you said, like you get triggered in the moment and it's like a reflection of past triggers because sometimes unprocessed triggers come back around. And it's because you didn't learn the lesson from that trigger initially. You kind of suppressed it, right? And so now it comes back to the surface at whatever time because the universe is still trying to get you to learn that lesson. It's never going to end, right? You'll continue to be triggered. And some people go their whole lives never mastering their triggers, never taking accountability for them, always blaming and shifting, right? And not wanting to deal with it because sometimes it's too much. And that's understandable. But
Yeah.
we want to promote more like self-reliance, self-accountability, right? And so in doing so, can you even like teleport back to your relationship and look at how there were not only bad things, but there were so many good things. And that's why you entered the relationship, right? And
Mhm.
then you could also look at it and say, this didn't happen to me, it happened for me, right? Why did you have to go through the ups and downs of your relationship? And why did it have to end? I feel like things end because you're ready to level up, but you won't accomplish the full leveling up until you master the triggers that are associated with that cycle closing out, right? And so you look back and you say, okay, what is it about the way I was treated or what I experienced in this relationship that affected me on an emotional level? Then you say, okay, well, it triggered feelings of, let's say, sadness, right? Insecurity, self worth issues, whatever it may have been. And then you get to the root of that. Why do I feel this way? For me personally, I've struggled with feeling not enough in relationships. And so I compensate. And then when it doesn't work out, it triggers more feelings of not enough because I'm assuming it's not working out because I'm not worthy of it working out. Yeah.
Right.
And so sometimes that's really the illusion of it. It's never a you thing, why something ends or why something doesn't go the way it's supposed to in your mind, right? It's a thing of divine timing. It wasn't supposed to. And so you have to take that as a blessing from the universe, like, hey, you saved me because, like you said, it could have happened when you were in your 70s and you look back like, damn, my whole life went to this experience and it's still a lesson, right? It's still a blessing in disguise. But sometimes we want to have more fulfilling experiences, right? And so we're kind of glad that we get the less fulfilling ones out the way first so that we can grow from them and make room for the newer ones that the universe is trying to bring online for us. And I have the feeling that you're meant to encounter someone who's more your speed, who's more in a like energetic resonance with you. And that's why you had to be plucked from that last situation so that you can be put into something that's more well suited for you. Literally.
I agree. I agree for sure. I definitely need that. And it's funny because until recently I thought that what I needed to do was to forgive Gio for the things that he did do because he did hurt my feelings in many ways, which I could have not controlled. Um like even if I am to control how I feel, like I feel like the solution would have been to leave the situation because he was not treating me the way I deserve to be treated, or a
Mhm.
lot of neglect and a lot of things. I forgot how I started this, so I forgot my point. I had a
It
point.
happens sometimes. You were saying like you had to forgive him, or you were thinking that you had to forgive
Oh
him.
yeah. I thought I
Mhm.
had to forgive him. And so last time I saw him when I gave him the divorce papers, he came to apologize to me. And I was like, look, I know, like, we were together for a reason. I know you. I know you have a good heart, and I know that you were doing those things because you yourself were in a dark place. But
Mhm.
I know how caring you are and how lovable you are, which is probably why we stayed together for so long. And it's I know that you didn't do it on purpose.
Mm.
And I don't hold any of that hatred towards you and against you. But I realized after talking with them, and we talked and we cried and all of that. And I realized that after that, I actually started reliving a lot of really bad memories that I had with them. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, you know what? I'm not there yet. I want to be.
Mhm.
And I thought this would be the way to let it go. But the truth is, I'm not there yet. So he kept saying he wanted to be friends. And I finally messaged him and I was like, hey, I can't be friends. I went on a dark path after our last conversation and it made me realize I still have a lot of work to do. And for me to do that, I just can't have you be a part of my life.
And you know what? That takes a lot of strength, inner and outer strength, right? To be able to look a trigger, so to speak, in the face and say, I honor you, but I can't deal with you right now because you're respecting the space that you're in. Everybody has their own path, everybody works in different ways, right? So the
Mhm.
key is being patient with yourself because it's not to say every single time you have a trigger, you'll be able to go out in nature, calm yourself in an hour and get back to like the person or whatever and be okay. Sometimes it takes weeks and months and years to process it because emotions they run deep. And a lot of times what we attract in our adult years are kind of like a replication of things we experienced in our childhood. So there's like layers to peel back. It's like we think we peel back the layers because we dealt with the adult situation, but it's a little deeper than that. And sometimes it takes a while, right?
Oh, yeah.
But in your situation specifically, I feel like you made a really powerful choice in knowing where you are and saying, I don't want to project. Because a lot of times when we get triggered, we project, right? We take it out on people, we blame people, we put them in a place to be at fault for something we have to take responsibility for. And I
Mhm.
think you're honoring that you don't want to be that person by saying, hey, I need you to keep your distance so I can heal and not project this shit onto you. Right.
Mm,
And that's beautiful because that means that you're ready for the leveling up. It just hasn't happened full on yet, but you're taking all the right steps. And that's a beautiful thing.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna take some time.
Yeah,
Boundary, you know?
literally.
So
I
I also
love that.
I want to touch back on the thing that Leah brought up, that how like
Mhm.
talking about after the triggers, how like that's something that people don't often do.
Right.
What first came to my mind is also the people who are not going to take you explaining where you were at right then and there are probably people that are not ready to be in your life. They're at a different point in their lives and they're not on the same healing path as you are, so they can't see what
Mm.
you're seeing. And it's
Yeah.
funny, I experienced that with my housemate all the time. So that was just like, oh, like another click of like, yeah, and we can also recognize that. But unless that person is ready to hear you and to see what's really going on and really listen and get out of their
Mhm.
own heads and thinking of like, well, you're doing this because you have something against me, right? Because then they fall back into that same of like, what am I doing wrong? What did I do? And all of those
Mhm.
the same, I guess it's a bad pattern that can keep circling if you're not careful.
I love that, right? Because you have a valid point in what you're saying, but I want to like piggyback on that, right? So I'm a huge fan of Abraham Hicks. I love Esther. I love her teachings and I abide by them often, right? And she has this saying that words don't teach. They do not teach. So what a lot of us humans tend to do is we try to use words to clear up a vibrational situation
Yeah.
when words kind of just muddy it up more, right? Because it's not a verbal situation, it's a vibrational situation. And so the key to fixing this, because she never really gives you like the problem and doesn't give you the solution, her solution to this is fix your own alignment. And when the person is ready, because you can't worry about what other people have going on. We all have enough going on inside our own inner worlds to
Mhm.
keep us busy for a couple lifetimes. We have no time to be worried about other people's stuff, right?
Yeah.
As empathic as some of us may be and we take it on anyway, but it's really not our place, right? We have to figure out our own shit. And so in working on your own vibration, you'll notice that you'll feel when it's the right time to communicate with people because you're in your own alignment and you have that. It's like the universe gives you the clarity because you're vibrating so high. It's like, you ever been around someone like, and you're in a bad mood, but their energy is so positive that it kind of snaps you out of it. And
Yeah.
they don't go down to where you are to that negative place to meet you. It's almost like you have to rise up to meet them, and you end up doing it because energy is contagious, right? And so, in your scenario with your housemate, it's like you will focus on your alignment, right? And you'll notice when it's appropriate to talk to him or her, or when it's appropriate to have certain conversations, because you'll feel it. And you'll say, hey, my alignment is showing me this person's not ready to receive this message. So it's okay. Bless. I'll give it to them when the time is right. Because the time is always right at some point. It's just
Mhm.
not always right when we feel ready to deliver it. And sometimes we're a little, you know what I mean? We're a little too, what's the word? Like
Eager.
not flighty, impulsive, and eager, right? To like get this message out because we're coming from a good place.
Yeah.
But then think about it this way, right? Like in the example of Billy and Mandy, Billy was coming from a genuine place. He didn't mean any harm, but Mandy was not in the place to receive it. And that's why she was triggered.
Yeah.
But one could also argue, because I think of myself as a philosopher sometimes, one could also argue that it is the right time to deliver the message because that person probably needs the trigger,
Ah,
Yeah.
that's a good
right?
way to
So,
not be like paranoid about when you're sharing it. It's like either way,
yeah,
try to
either
tune
way,
in, but if you can't totally read it, it's like
it's okay.
deliver
And
it.
what I noticed, like even in my life recently, it's like I'll I'll be consciously thinking like how I can avoid triggers myself or for other people, and you can't. I tried. I personally have tried. You cannot because it's not something you can predict. You
That's
will
good.
have the best of intentions in your delivery, the sweetest tone, but if a person is not in a place to receive it lovingly, they will not. And there's nothing we can do about it, right? We just have to send them love and light and know because the thing is this, right? We all have a connection to source. We all have our connection to the universe, right? And therefore, we all have the potential to find the alignment that the universe is seeking to teach us, right? So we have to now look at our counterparts around us and say, I know for a fact that I'm able to find alignment for myself, and I trust and I have faith and confidence in you that you will be able to do the same. And you send them love and light, and you send them on their way, and you focus on yourself and your own vibration and your own frequency until they're ready to catch up to you.
Yeah.
And they will. They have to because they either have to or you will no longer be a resonance for that person because the universe only puts you in a vibrational situation that you're a match to. Once you are no longer a vibrational match, you can no longer be a part of that. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's either that person is going to honor their triggers and deal with their own shit, and then you guys are okay again, or they're going to continue to shift blame and do what they got to do. And the universe is going to say, okay, now you're ready to go elsewhere because you've learned your lessons. Now it's time for this person to learn theirs. Yeah.
Mm. I have a question,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Mhm.
So talking about good triggers, when you are in alignment,
Yeah.
I find something, and it's new for me, that when things are happening, good triggers,
Hmm.
like I feel a little bit of like a numbing out because I feel I don't know yet what the healthy relationship. Like I don't want to get too excited. Kind of
You're
the same.
waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, and same with I feel like I've mastered, not mastered, but I'm working on the bad triggers where I know like this is, you know, like you said, don't be, you don't want to be like a servant to your bad trigger emotions. But in the same way, it's like, what is the way to, what is a healthy way to feel about when good triggers are happening?
Okay. So also from Abraham Hicks, because I learned so much from her, but she puts it as this, right? Your emotions are almost like your map or your compass as to your alignment. Right. And so you have to question now what you're aligning with because you can align, but you can align to anything.
Yeah.
You're aligning to that universal force that resides within inside of you, right? And so now you have to question, okay, well, I have this connection to source and I'm aligning with it, but what frequency am I aligning to, right? So for those of you who know, the universal frequency is unconditional love. And so the closer you feel to that, which is joy, peace, and bliss, the more alignment you are with your universal truth. That's the essence of who you naturally are without the ego, without the human shell, right? And so feeling those happy triggers, it's like you have a choice to feel how you want in that moment. But my opinion and my advice would be to dive deeper into those happy triggers, because you are what you attract, and you attract what you give your focus to, right? So the more you focus on the negative, the more you attract the negative. But if you're experiencing good and you want more good to keep coming, then keep focusing there, because where your focus goes, energy flows, right? And so now you're focusing on these good things that are happening. You ever had like a phase in your life where it was one good thing after the next, after the next? And maybe it didn't last all that long, but there was a period of time where there were so many good things happening, right? That's
Yeah.
because when the first one happened, it catalyzed this energy of gratitude inside of you, right? This energy of bliss. And so the universe said, hey, you like that? Okay, I'll give you some more, right? You're focusing there, I'll give you some more. And it's the same thing with the negative triggers. Oh, you like that? Because even if you don't like it, if you're focusing there, the universe is going to take it as a sign that that's what you want more of. So they give you more, and then you focus on more bad things and they give you some more. So it's really a matter of your choice and where you want to focus, right? It's not so much of like becoming a slave to those higher energies, because those higher energies actually catalyze life, right? Versus the lower energies where they drain life. So you do become a slave to them.
Yeah.
But it's kind of impossible to become a slave to joy. It's just something you experience. If
Yeah.
you think about it, right? You know, it's just something you feel, and it feels good and you want more of it. So you just focus there. Yeah.
Maybe I guess where I'm seeing it is when it's related to external people or
Uh-huh. So it's more the energy of not becoming codependent on what that person
yeah,
triggers inside of you.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I get you. So in that instance, it's more of a thing of understanding that the trigger, even though it's a good one, the source of it is not that person, right? Just as I was saying initially, it's like people can't make you happy, just like they can't make you angry. So when you're feeling the anger, you're more prone to want to blame someone for your anger. But when you're feeling the joy, sometimes we do associate the joy. And I'm going to do more golden conversation topics talking about like this specific topic here, but
Mm.
that's more or less like codependent energy and attachment, right? We attach meaning to the people and to the things around us. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm experiencing, you know, a good time with this person or this friend or whatever the case may be. It must be related to this particular person. It has to be something about them, when really it's something about you,
Mhm.
that when you come around this person, you feel good on the inside. And if you think about it, right, happiness or joy or those higher states of energy, it can't be related to just one entity, right? Not one thing or one person. Because if you think about it, in your life, there have been many people that make you feel that feeling, right? There have been many things that make you feel joyous or happy or bliss or peace. And so it's kind of impossible to equate it to something, even though, like, let's say you're getting this continuous like stimulus of good energy from a certain person, right? That doesn't mean that that person is giving you that joy. It just means that with this person, you have a certain alignment that catalyzes inside of you that allows you to experience joy from that perspective. Because you could have that same person turn around and like stab you in the back, let's say, right? And then you would no longer feel joy from them. So
Yeah.
it can't be as a result of that person. It has to be as a result of what's going on inside of you. You're in a good place, so you're attracting good energy.
Okay. I love
Yeah.
that. So I think work on, yeah, codependent, like attachment.
Because that's what it is. And it's a human thing. We all do it, or we
Yeah.
all at least have done it in our lives, you know, where we experience something long enough with one thing, whether it's like a car or one person, whether it's a friend or a romantic interest. And we start to attach the meaning that you are my happiness. This thing is my happiness. And God forbid this thing gets taken from you or decides to act on its own free will and do what it wants to do. Now you no longer feel joy. And it's because the joy really wasn't as a result of the person, it was a result of your alignment.
Wow.
That's why you attracted the person to begin with, right? You know,
So
or the
cool.
thing.
So cool.
Yeah. All right, guys, I have two questions online that I want to get to.
Okay.
The first one says, my question to people were like, you know, what triggers do you need help with or advice for? So the first person said, telling people telling half truths or downplaying your emotions, right? So if this person, it's a woman, if she was on this Zoom call, my advice to her would be, all right, so look at what that triggers inside of you, right? Someone telling a half truth. Let's focus on the first part of her trigger, right? A half truth is, you can look at it as deceitful, right? Or like someone kind of trying to dissuade you or persuade you to believe something that's not actually the truth. And so that can trigger all types of emotions in you. But what I'm really picking up on, like intuitively for her specifically, it feels more like not feeling worthy of people telling you the truth, right? It feels like this energy of like feeling not deserving of someone who's honest, or not deserving of someone who has integrity, right? Or someone who can have the certain respect for you that you would like to have for yourself. And I can tell you guys, like with that axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without, you get reflected back to you what you feel inside. So if she feels like people are telling half truths, maybe it's because she doesn't believe that there are genuine people out there. Maybe her vibration is calibrated to a standard or to an emotion that's set at like I'm trying to think of like the right one, not pride, not anger, but let's say fear, right? Because most emotions have an underlying basis of fear anyway. And so for her, maybe it's the fear that she'll be led down the wrong path if she chooses to believe the half truths that people are spewing to her. Maybe there's an underlying fear or insecurity of, you know, I need my life to be a certain way or to look a certain way or to have certain components, and people who don't tell the truth scare me. You know what I mean? It's a trigger for a reason. And then let's talk about her second one, downplaying your emotions, like when other people downplay your emotions, right? That to me stands like it screams worth issues, self-worth issues. Do you feel worthy of your emotions being honored? Do you honor your own emotions? Because it starts there. If you don't honor your own emotions, no one else around you will. And that is a fact. You attract what you are. So if you are not someone who respects what you feel and honors what you feel and even acknowledges like what you feel, nobody else is going to pay you any attention in that respect. You know what I mean? And so I feel that for her, it's like triggers, they come as a result of different things, but she would have to really do that self-analysis to get to the root of what it is about her that feels triggered by this. Because let's look at me, for example, right? If somebody was to lie to me, I kind of don't care because I'm at that place in my life where it's like, okay, that's more of a reflection of where you are and the fact that you feel the need to tell half truths than it is a reflection of where I am. That's how I see it, right? But for her, she's still at a place where she feels offended by people telling half truths. And so now you have to look at yourself and say, okay, you have two people who are experiencing the same thing and reacting differently. What is it about those two people and their underlying emotions that's catalyzing a trigger versus a non-trigger? You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so next question comes from Nichelle, who I love so much. And she said, are triggers signs that we are growing and living at our leading edge? And I'm going to say yes, because when triggers come, that's that catalyst for growth, right? That's the universe showing you what it is that you need to see about yourself so that you can level up, right? And the leading edge is just where you're kind of facing life and you're like, I'm ready for so much more. I'm ready for what you have in store for me. And you kind of can't do that without triggers, right? Because how can you get to the next level if you don't even know where you're at right now? The triggers show you where you're at right now, what you have present in you that you currently need to fix or work on so that you can become more of who you're meant to be. So I love that question so much. That was the last question, but I do like that question a lot. And I feel like it's really food for thought because that's another way to look at your triggers and love them, right? Because they do symbolize you being at that leading edge, right? Being that co-creator with your universe, like, hey, you're showing me, and now I have the power to do something about it. Because we all co-create with the universe, with God's source, and we make things happen, right? That's how we attract what we are, because we are the vibrational source that spirit sends what we are attracting, right? So it's like that two-part kind of not cohabitive, but like co-creative kind of force where we're where we're at and the universe sees and they send us something, we learn from it, and they see where we're at and they send us more. It's that kind of ebb and flow that keeps us going and growing, right? And so yeah, that's kind of what I have on that. You guys have any questions based on the two examples that people wanted clarity on? Or
I feel like it's really clear. I love the word honoring. I feel like that's such a good way
important word.
emotions.
Yeah.
Because when you think of trigger, especially in society right now, it can just be so negative, and it's like, no,
Can.
honor.
Also too, guys, like how you perceive your trigger is a direct reflection of where you are vibrating at, right? So you attract based on where you vibrate, and then you perceive based on where you vibrate, right? So again, like me encountering a liar, which because I'm not affected by it, I most likely wouldn't encounter that person because the universe is going to send you the things that you need the most, right? And also you attract what you desire, but that's like more manifestation based. I'm talking more like attraction that helps you to grow, right? Not attracting the things that we want because we are in that energy of alignment to receive them now. But I forgot my point now. I feel like Gabby. I was going somewhere, guys, I promise. And then it just literally left me. But that was intentional, I guess. We are coming up on that like hour mark anyway. So I guess maybe that was the universe's way of telling me to shut up. Like, get it together. I'm like, okay.
What? No, this was so lovely. First of all, 'cause I
Thank
feel
you
like,
guys for showing up.
yeah, thank you for having the session. I'm like, don't know how I didn't hear about it until I talked to Nichelle.
Yeah, no,
Dang.
it's okay.
Thanks to-
I know right now it's still new, so I didn't expect it to be like this huge gathering, but I was grateful for whoever wanted to join. You know what I mean? I was glad to share space, time, and energy with you guys. So thank you again for being here and for participating, for having the questions and challenging me to use my brain to kind of like think things through a little bit deeper.
So
It
wise.
was really
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really nice to get other people's perspective for sure.
I agree.
On this. 'Cause
And I
it's not
didn't even drop my disclaimer, unfortunately, too. I usually say because this was originally like an Instagram series that I'm now like bringing to YouTube, but I usually say like, I'm not here to try to convince you, right? I'm not here to try to persuade you of anything. It's just a perspective that I have that I'm offering that you could either consider or not. Like I'm gonna love you either way, right? But it's just food for thought. So there's
right.
the disclaimer. I saved it for the end.
I like to put that way. Food for thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys feel good on your 4th of July? Do you feel like you've been enlightened about these triggers a little bit more?
Yes. Is this? Oh, it's 4th of July. This is my celebration because I'm not.
Same. I have laundry to do, but that's about it. Literally. Yeah. I'm so excited, guys. And this is going to be a weekly thing. It won't be on Zoom going forward. I just wanted to kick it off live because I felt like the interaction would be really beneficial for some people who wanted to like have that live feedback. But you guys could tune into YouTube like every week and I'll be dropping them. It's looking like every Sunday going forward, but we'll see. I'll play it by ear. But you
Would you
guys, if you want to tune in, you can. I'm sorry, Gabby, I didn't even hear you.
Sorry. Would you be willing to sometimes do an interactive one?
Yeah, so I actually thought about that. Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah. No, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, right? Because
Mhm.
I work by myself all day. So then I'm just like filling my head with stuff. And I feel like sometimes if I don't talk about it with someone, I just like forget it all. And it's like I had
Ah.
information here, but I didn't fully process it.
Mhm.
And then it just went away. So I feel like it's really helpful to be able to talk about it and really make those things that I'm working on or that you're really listening to stick.
I agree with you. And I never thought about it from that. But thank you for sharing that perspective because now it's really true in my experience. I've noticed that when I talk about things and I'm able to like get that feedback, it sticks more in my head than if I just listen to something. Unless I'm listening to it repetitively, that's a little different. But just like the one and done, I forget maybe like 60% of what I learned. I retained like the main things that I really needed to hear, but most of it I'm like, I don't even know what this is. Like, but I get you. And yeah, I was thinking about that earlier, how every so often I would want to do them live. I think I'm gonna wait until it gets more of like people are more into it so that we could have bigger groups come on. So maybe like in a couple of weeks, or I'll do one live maybe once a month. Does that sound good?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then maybe it'll become like a live thing every time. You never know, right? I'm open to what the universe has in store for us. I really am.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Oh, well, okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you so much for vibing and connecting and offering your perspectives. This was beautiful.
Thank you. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. So enjoy your 4th, be well, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks, you too.
Bye.